When you hear an introduction, something like this, you feel like an imposter. It's like an imposter syndrome. But I definitely relate with people's manager. I've always said, आप हो तो हम हैं, आप नहीं तो हम कुछ भी नहीं. Right? Guten Tag, Konnichiwa, Kemcho, Buongiorno. These greetings, these words are in different languages, and some of you may be wondering what they really mean. And yet, you acknowledge the well-wisher because the words had a certain element of tone to them, saas tha, love tha. Just like words from an unfamiliar language are meaningless, so is formative education in a child's early years, unless not taught in a language which they understand. Like Roma, I was also born in Mumbai, brought up in Mumbai, and back in the 70s and in the 80s, Bombay, as it was yesterday, Mumbai, as it is today, was a hub of diverse cultures, was a microcosm of diverse cultures. People migrated to Mumbai from all corners of India and continue to do so only for one reason. Bombay embraced everyone. It's called the city of dreams. But back in the day, you had Gujarati medium schools, Marathi medium schools, Tamil medium schools, and a fair share of English medium schools. And people who migrated from all over India consumed education in the language they understood. And they grew up to be as adept as anyone else, regardless of their medium of school. In fact, I know many successful businessmen, both in the Bombay Stock Exchange as well as traders, who came in from regional medium schools. So what does it say? Proficiency in English does not equate to either success, neither life learning. It is a myth today that if you know English, you are successful and you are a contributor to your own success and eventually the nation's success. This notion has now been corrected from a policy perspective. After 40 years, the education policy in India has turned on its head. It's akin to demonetization of finance. What really happened in the economy? These are those big ticket bang ideas. Today, NEP, the National Education Policy, mandates, and this choice is given to the student and the parent to consume early formative years of education in the language they understand. This policy is based on global studies historically that show that children grasp concepts familiar to what they understand in their mother tongues. If you look at India, India is a heterogeneous society. 1.45 billion people, 20% of the world's population. But you know what they say about India? Everything that you see is true. The opposite of it is also true. India's gross enrollment ratio is 27%. By a measure of comparison, only as a comparison, the gross enrollment ratio of China is 64%. And what do you mean by gross enrollment ratio? Percentage of eligible population between the ages of 18 and 34 who are enrolled in higher education, and our number is 27%, 27.3, 27.4. Which basically means 70% of the population are either dropouts after 10th or after 12th standard. History has proven that when gross enrollment ratios rise above 50%, that's the first early signal of a country transiting from a developing nation to a developed nation. So what is developed nation? Apart from economic wealth, I'm not going to talk about that. Apart from industrialization, I'm not going to talk about that. It's human index. The health of the population, literacy rates, investments in education. When you look at India, we spend circa 3 to 4% of our GDP on education. Again, as just a measure of comparison, nothing else. China spends 5 to 6%. But China's economy is 5 times that of India. Now, this is something we all know. But what is being done about it? And that's the moot problem India is solving today. Where is the polity, whether it's the bureaucracy, whether it's the industrialists, whether it's you, whether it's me, everybody. The ambition for India in the near term is to become that $10 trillion economy. And for that to happen, you require out-of-the-box ideas, big bang ideas. India needs to be a risk appetite country with execution capabilities at scale. But for us to talk about the future, let's paint a picture of a present. Consider our vibrant workforce today. Millions in the agriculture. Millions, Rohit spoke to you, in the gig economy. Millions in the corporates. Millions in the MSME sector. That's the unorganized and the organized manufacturing sector. Millions in government jobs. Circa 2.5 million in our armed forces. 3 million globally renowned diaspora. But delving into the backbone of our economy is 111 million people working in the MSME sector in India. Remember this 111 million people. That's roughly the size of Mexico. However, the unfortunate part, the opposite of it is also true. The unemployment rate is also 24%. But again, I can't even imagine the percentage of youth who are school dropouts, who don't even feature in the employment statistics of India, where some rough estimates is 5x. But this is where the opportunities and our challenges both lie. In my opinion, and there are multiple ways of achieving this, but if you look at research, history, the path to growth is a concurrent exponential growth through 3 growth levers. We need to produce more, we need to innovate more, and of course, digitization. For the produce part, the story of China is similar to ours. Once they stood where we stand today, 402 million people in China are in the MSME sector. By source of comparison, India is at 111 in organized and unorganized. So what was their strategy? What did they do what was right? For that, the story goes back to the 1970s, and that's where they liberalized their economy. But They also recognized that their rural population was their biggest asset. And what did they do? Recognizing this, they were an asset. They recognized their tactile skills, the skills which they worked with their hands. They recognized that. And you know what they did with that? They pinpointed provinces in China, aligned it with the tactile skills of that province, and they created specialized industry hubs in that province. But before that, they invested heavily in vocational education system. So what it did, in the province, it matched the tactile skills. They asked the vocational training education system to work alongside with the industry. And they created these giant specialized industrial hubs. But the planning started 5 years before the factories would be put up in China. 5 years before. So they primed up the sector, they primed up the youth, they primed up the population with the right skills, and 5 years later, they had the manufacturing hubs, which was created. Today, this system in China operates seamlessly, as if it was an autopilot. So globally, it's clear that the definition of education is beyond the realm of traditional graduate studies and undergraduate studies, postgraduate studies. Take the case of Australia's TAFE. Take the case of Germany. Now that's a very interesting insight. Germany has this dual education system of apprenticeship and education, which they've been running successfully since post-war World War II. Approximately half of German students opt for the apprentice system in their high-end manufacturing right after grade 12. Historically, Germany's youth population, if you kind of look at that, the unemployment rate is low. India needs to adopt similar models based on our culture, based on our demographics, based on our topography. What would this lead to? Integration of millions into the manufacturing sector. The NEP 2020 has corrected this. In NEP 2020, vocational education now finds itself in mainstream education. It is mandated. You will have to learn skills, real skills, life skills, along with your graduate studies and undergraduate studies. We have corrected this. The Prime Minister's pet project, which is called the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, today is skilling 1.3 million people. They are in the vocational training education centers. But remember, we need to compound from here if we need to reach our dream of $10 trillion. History has shown repeatedly that societies advance when rural population are given the right skill sets and rural populations are educated. But history has also demonstrated time and time again that there are better answers to only one form of education. Which gets me to the innovation part. We spoke about the produce part. In this heterogeneous society, millions of us, you and me, our children, your brothers, your sisters, continue to believe in being chartered accountants, in being designers, in being engineers, in being doctors, in being lawyers, in being fashion journals, in being fashionistas. But for this segment, especially, with the advancing technology, our youth across Bharat and our youth across India must transition from this mindset of just being a service provider to being a creator. We need to create more jobs. And because we are talking about innovation, India needs to produce roughly 150,000 PhDs annually from the current 40,000 until 2030. And these PhDs should not be academic alone. They should work with innovation lab of your companies to disrupt, to find solution to national challenges. Let me give you an example of Ola Electric. Today, India imports 100% of the batteries for EV vehicles. Ola Electric 2 years ago got this bunch of science researchers, and they're working in some remote location in Bangalore. And what they're doing is finding a solution for India to be self-sufficient through research. And they're creating a battery double the size of what's available from China today. And from the last report I had read about Ola Electric, that they are about a year and a half from solving this problem. And once they solve this problem, not only it is the energy requirement of India, but they will be solving 20% of the EV batteries worldwide. So innovation means much more than tech breakthroughs. It's about bringing meaningful solutions so that the lives of millions of our people in India change. India needs more doers. India needs to innovate at about 5x times. But we are a risk-averse society. We only celebrate merit. For us to innovate, we need to celebrate failure. Because failure brings resilience in you, failure brings perseverance in you. And the more we celebrate failure, the societal behavior changes. More and more people start to innovate. Remember, history honors those nations that rise up to these challenges. NEP has solved even for that. Today, you have innovation, you have Atal Bihari tinkering labs all over the country. And what it does is two things. Problem-solving skills. You have projects, you work on the projects, you fall, you fail, and this is what innovation is all about. So the policy exists, the will exists. What we need to do today is seize the opportunity and execute with laser focus. Which brings us to the third point about digitization. So you have the triple stack in India already. You have the UPI, you have the payment gateway, you have the ONDC. What it does today, it is a level playing field for all those who have been marginalized in India. The impact of just these three things has been monumental. Firstly, subsidies in the hands of the people directly into their cash account. Microfinance, microcredit for farmers directly into their cash account. I'm not even talking about governance issues, and I'm not even going to talk about that because the impact is at the granular level and it's a bottom-up approach. I'll give you a story of Radha, and it's a true story. Radha is an artisan from Rajasthan. Prior to the digital stack, Radha used to sell her product. There were intermediaries in her villages, and they would take 50% of the cut for Radha to not only have access to microcredit, but also to sell beyond her borders. And you know what? ONDC has disrupted that completely. Raja has her own digital store. UPI ensures that she transacts in real time, which basically means 40 to 50% what the middleman was taking, that money is in Radha's hand. Which basically means we are fostering individual prosperity. Margins are better for other. And that's for the rural economy. But if you want traditional education to reach the masses, to our 1.4 billion people who, apart from tactile skills, want to get into graduate, undergraduate studies and serve. Remember what I'm saying, and this you must have read. Human with AI skills will replace humans without AI skills. It's evident. You have to embrace it. You have to. One such company which is pretty much equalizing this, and not necessarily working in India, but I've been told they are also working in India, but they're working with a lot of African countries, is Khan Academy. They're completely democratizing the way education is all around the world. Now, Khan Academy offers many subjects from humanities to engineering to codes to mathematics in a language, in a concept, in a pedagogy where a student understands. So the concepts are in the mother tongue that they understand. So the language is no longer a barrier. One biggest issue India faces is the ratio, the high student to teacher ratio in education. Now what it does, it leads to uneven educational experiences, and research has shown that this is one of the critical factors of a dropout ratio. And platforms like Khan Academy today have an application called Discover and the Ask mode. Consider the Discover and the Ask mode as a private tutor to every student who has a regular handset, or he can go to an Atal Bihari tinkering lab and get access to computers over there. So, if you have a human educator and assume the student is not understanding a concept, the Discover and Ask mode breaks down the concept, breaks down the process, breaks down the pace in which he understands. It's like having your own private teacher along with a human educator. The more the student works with the tool, the stronger the tool gets. He understands the student even better. We need to build our own Khan Academy platforms in India at a massive scale. It should be mandated into each and every curricula so that tomorrow teacher is not an issue. Every student can have its own teacher. That is the power of tech. The ideal classroom in the future, and I'm telling you it's inevitable, is an AI tutor and a human tutor working alongside each other. So the tech exists, again, the platform exists, the adaptability is feasible now. As per the last Department of Telecommunication reports, India will have 5G in all corners of India in the next 12 months. Which basically means the future of digital future is also within our grasp. So our road to that $10 trillion economy passes through our schools, passes through our village, passes through our agriculture, passes through corporates, passes through doctors, passes through tech industry, manufacturing industry, passes through also the dollar remittances of our Indian diaspora from abroad. The dream is where Bharat and India are in harmony, where every student, every citizen contributes to a prosperous Bharat, to a wiser Bharat, and to a more skilled India. And India recognized not by its numbers, but its empowered 1.5 billion mindsets. Empowered 1.5 billion. If I take a brush and I dip it in red and I paint a full circle, the red will go into pink and the pink will go into white, right? So the red paint is what Durga wears. The pink paint is what Lakshmi wears. And the white paint is what Saraswati wears. Now, ask yourself, does education produce wealth, which then becomes power? Or does power produce wealth, which then becomes education? Now, this is a more nuanced answer. It could be clockwise or it could be anti-clockwise. If you ask me, it is education. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time.